Oh, right. Yeah, this is a request from Braden, the Trump deception. I've not heard of this. I've heard of the Obama. I've got Patrice talking about the Obama deception, but I haven't seen that either. But the Trump deception. I wonder if this is because I watched Nick Fuentes and he said he went off Trump because of J.D. Vance, that J.D. Vance was a complete betrayal to MAGA. Because J.D. Vance, I guess what he's saying is that J.D. Vance is establishment. MAGA's meant to be anti-government, anti what was, but J.D. Vance is of that ilk. Which I don't really think much of because I don't know J.D. Vance and that don't really bother me either way. But then I see J.D. Vance when he was here talk about he's good friends with David Lammy, who's like part of our establishment, and they're they've holidayed together, and I was thinking Nick Fuentes might have had a point then, because if he's hobnobbing around with Lammy and all these guys, he's definitely part of the establishment. But yeah, let's see what he's saying. Let's go.
Are we ready for a new world order?
Today is the first full day of the New World Order.
Lead in shaping a new world order.
We've got to accept that this is the New World Order.
Hi everyone, just a little preface before we get going. I've been sitting on this video for about 6 weeks and it's been a nervous journey. Not because I'm scared.
Yeah, I think this is because Braden put, you got to do volume 3. I guess this is volume 3 of the biblical prophecies because it sounds like the same guy. I thought this was a different doc, but I guess it's part 3.
For the future, but because I'm nervous about how this video is going to be perceived or received. I had to wait about 6 weeks for all the facts to come in, for all of the Trump appointments to be made, and I have a lot of concerns. I'm overall pleased that Trump has been made president, but there are many, many issues that a lot of Trump loyalists won't want to hear. And if that's you, I pray for your patience. I ask for your open-mindedness and enjoy the rest of this video. Hello everyone, this is Leonard Ulrich with a much-needed New World Order report, which explores the areas where secret societies, history, and Bible prophecy meet. Please share this video with people you care about, as YouTube repeatedly unsubscribes people from this shadow banned channel and will never let it grow beyond 25,000 subscribers. Before we get started, Jay Anderson, if you are watching this, please get a hold of me at lulrich@mts.net. I've been trying to get in touch with you, and I have something for you. First, an update on my third feature film, COVID-19 Beyond Human. I didn't quite finish writing the script to Volume 3 yet because the reading list for my third film has taken me in valuable directions, as you will see in this video. The good news is that the most difficult part of making my feature films is more than halfway done. Because I am not as far along in this project as I would like, I have decided that Volume 3 will not be entered into the Winnipeg Reel-to-Reel Film Festival in February 2025. This is the most important film I have ever made, and it should not be rushed. That may be disappointing to some of you, but I have thought and prayed about it, and I am now convinced that this is for the best. Don't worry, the film will be released on the internet this winter. After plowing a lot of money into equipment for Volume 3 and every video I make from 2024 onwards, including this one, I'm starting to ship out DVDs to my supporters as promised. Once that is done, DVDs will be publicly available through my website, nwotruth.org. The profits from DVD sales will then be reinvested back into advertisement for Volume 3 on a local Christian radio station when it plays in the Winnipeg Reel-to-Reel Film Festival, which has seen a gate attendance of nearly 6,000. More good news came to us this summer through Robert F. Kennedy's X feed, where he notes that 5 states, Texas, Utah, Kansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana, are suing Pfizer for knowing and concealing the vaccine causing myocarditis, pericarditis, failed pregnancies, and deaths. That's 10% of U.S. states. The tide is turning. And now for the opening course. I am glad that the books I've been reading for Volume 3 have taken the film in a completely different direction once again. The most valuable book in my reading list has been Belgian psychologist Matthias Desmet's The Psychology of Totalitarianism, because it has taught me one thing: that facts always take a back seat to feelings, especially when people have been professionally propagandized and or exposed to a scientifically crafted fear campaign. I spent 3 years gathering all kinds of facts for my third film, and now realize that facts are less effective at proving to someone that COVID-19 was planned and controlled through a program of psychological warfare. You can show a healthcare professional one peer-reviewed study after another, clearly showing how resistance to COVID-19 decreased as the number of shots increased, but they will only dispute study methodologies. You can show a healthcare professional a clip of local healthcare officials stating on a government-funded television channel that adverse events surrounding COVID-19 are higher after vaccination for COVID-19, but they will only dispute the authority of this official instead. They are too professionally propagandized.
This slide is showing the proportion of breakthrough cases in the province that are experienced by First Nations people. Keeping in mind that we make up roughly 10% of the population, what we can see is that the proportion among breakthrough cases, hospitalizations, ICU outcomes, and fatalities remains higher after vaccination.
The Telegraph newspaper in the UK.
I have something to add just before we get deeper into this as well. I watched a funeral director. He actually went on the BBC at first to talk about COVID safety things and whatever. He's like, because I was just like everyone else, I believed it. He's like, but no more people died of COVID in the UK. No more people died. He's like, and they're like, how do you know? He's like, I know because I'm a funeral director. We had no more increase in funerals than we do every year. And that's when he realised this isn't right.
Published an article on March 4th, 2023, which detailed this fear campaign, which was literally called Project Fear. If you ever wanted an example of what maximum fear porn looks like, it would look like this. The assumption behind this government-sponsored ad is that everyone who gets COVID-19 will end up like this.
Yeah, and that's my worst fear as well, is when you see people when they're older and got lung cancer and they walk upstairs and they're out of breath. That's like I couldn't think of nothing worse. Watching that was awful.
Leaked WhatsApp messages from former UK Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Matt Hancock, literally stated that he wanted to frighten the pants off the public about COVID-19. What is even worse than this is when the same Matt Hancock asked his predecessor via WhatsApp, "When do we deploy the new COVID variant?" And some Christians that I care about will still tell me that they are praying for my mental and spiritual health if I tell them that COVID-19 was planned, controlled, and that the threat that did exist because they engineered it was not as advertised. This is especially true when the very people who locked the UK down had at least a dozen drunken parties at number 10 Downing Street. The very people who imposed social distancing.
The only thing with that, they made a real big fuss of that at the time. That they shut everyone down and stopped people. Like, they was stopping people from going to see their loved ones die and be at their bedside. That's awful. But the whole party thing, everyone was having parties. Everyone was going around everyone's house. So some people weren't, I suppose. But really, it probably was about 3 days that people were like wary of it. And then everyone kind of, no one was at work and everything just kind of went into a mass country party mode, really.
On the UK, like the leader of the House of Commons, Jacob Rees-Mogg, joked about social distancing rules at a Christmas party in December 2021.
I see we're all here obeying regulations, aren't we? I mean, this party is not going to be investigated by the police in a year's time. You are all very carefully socially distanced. We've moved, I'm pleased to tell you, from the metric back to the imperial system. I know you were at least 2 inches of regulation, which is, as I understand it, what the regulations require during the social distancing period.
Focusing on the hypocritical COVID-19 psychological warmongers is far more effective than presenting any data set, especially when we realize that COVID-19 was all about advancing the long-term agenda of transhumanism. With that in mind, I'd like to read 4 excerpts from the book The Psychology of Totalitarianism by Belgian psychologist Matthias Desmet, who came up with the concept of mass formation psychosis. Just before we do that, I'd like to show you a clip of Dr. Robert Malone, who is the co-inventor of mRNA technology, explaining what mass formation psychosis is.
When you have a society that has become decoupled from each other and has free-floating anxiety and a sense that things don't make sense, we can't understand it, and then their attention gets focused by a leader or a series of events on one small point, just like hypnosis, they literally become hypnotized and can be led anywhere. And one of the aspects of that phenomena is the people that they identify as their leaders, the ones typically that come in and say, you have this pain and I can solve it for you, I and I alone, okay, can fix this problem for you, okay, then they will follow that person. It doesn't matter whether they lie to him or whatever. The data are irrelevant. And furthermore, anybody who questions that narrative is to be immediately attacked. They are the other. This is central to mass formation psychosis.
And this is what Jordan Peterson was saying with the trans thing. They're teaching a little boy that he can be a girl, or a little girl that they can be a boy. It's like you're, because he says to someone in his class, he just points at someone. He's like, we're going to play a game. I'm going to count down from 3, and then we'll start playing. 3, 2, 1, go. And the person literally just sits there frozen. And Jordan Peterson's like, exactly. It's like, you can do anything in that moment, but you don't know what to do because I haven't set out the rules of the game for you. So when I said, we're going to play a game, 3, 2, 1, go. You don't know what game we're playing. You don't know. It's like, and basically it works off the same thing with the trans thing. If you tell when a little boy's a little boy, the little boy things growing helps them. It gives them a basic understanding, a basic set of rules. Boys should protect girls, not hit girls. Boys. Do you know what I mean? All these things. Girls the same. But once you tell one that they can be the other, then you just basically have just confused them, and they have there's no rules to the game. So how can you play the game if there's no rules to the game? You don't know no rules, and you're confused. And it's I have to look I have to look this book up. But it's a saying as well that a desperate person, a drowning person, will clutch at the blade of a sword for safety. When someone's in such a like he said, bad state, they will grasp onto anything that gives them any type of hope, and then defend that with every ounce they have. Yeah.
And this is what has happened. We had all those conditions. If you remember back before 2019, everybody was complaining, the world doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. And we're all isolated from each other. We're all on our little tools. We're not connected socially anymore, except through social media. And then this thing happened, and everybody focused on it. That is how mass formation psychosis happens, and that is what's happened here. Now, there's ways to get out of it. Matthias's recommendation is you got to get people to realize that what we've got is a situation of global totalitarianism. In his experience in Europe, making people realize there's a bigger threat than the virus can cause a separation psychologically in this fusion, this hypnosis that has happened. The problem is then you're just substituting a bigger boogeyman from the current one, and somebody else can come in and manipulate that. The real problem, and it gets back to your core point, we're sick as a society, and we have to heal ourselves. And one of the things we have to do is come together. We have to recreate our social bonds. We have to buy into integrity, the importance of human dignity, and the importance of community.
I'm going to call this section...
Yeah, by me, like where I grew up, it would have been big. What it was is literally where the first Anglo-Saxons was given land by the Britons. I've mainly Briton blood, but a lot Anglo-Saxon too, but they was here. If you go along the Thames by mine, there's a thing where it talks about the first people here, and it talks about women, that the women washing the clothes and things, they would go down to the river. It was a communal thing. All the women would go down to the river, and you talk and blah 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 like you do. And then all the men would be working together, hunting or doing whatever, tending fields. But it would be people doing things together, like even something like that. It wasn't just that they was going down to wash clothes. It was also a social event. Because you got to think as well, it's back in the day where there's no entertainment either. Like, pretty boring back in the old days. Who is it that said that? Other than going to church on a Sunday, you basically just had to go home, sit on your bed in the dark all night. Yeah.
Welcome to the Animal Farm. These experts did not live up to their promises. These experts pledged that the gates to freedom would reopen after 2 doses of the vaccine, but when the time came, things didn't change, and they came up with the need for the 3rd. And, just like Orwell's pigs, they sometimes change the rules overnight, inconspicuously. First, the animals had to comply with the measures because the number of sick people could not exceed the capacity of the healthcare system, as in flatten the curve. But one day, everyone woke up to discover writing on the walls stating that the measures were being extended because the virus had to be eradicated, as in crush the curve. Eventually, the rules changed so often that only the pigs seemed to know them. And even that was not so sure. Some people became suspicious. How is it possible that these experts made mistakes that even laymen wouldn't make? Aren't they scientists? The kind of people who took us to the moon and gave us the internet? They can't be that stupid, can they? What is the end game? Their recommendations take us further down the road in the same direction. With each new step, we lose more of our freedoms until we reach a final destination where human beings are reduced to QR codes on a large technocratic medical experiment. That's how most people eventually became certain. Very certain. Yet of the most opposing things. Some people were convinced that we were dealing with a killer virus, others that it was nothing more than the seasonal flu, and still others believed that the virus did not even exist and that we were dealing with a worldwide conspiracy. And there were also a few who continued to tolerate uncertainty and kept asking ourselves, how can we adequately understand what is going on in society? I'm going to call this section the ICU bed strain. The ICUs are clearly overloaded by COVID-19 patients, aren't they? That's correct. But the way in which we should interpret this fact is another question. Rather than an indication of COVID-19's exceptional danger, the overload seems to be the result of two colliding trends over recent decades. One, a sharp rise in susceptibility to developing serious symptoms in viral lung diseases in a major part of the population, especially people suffering from obesity and diabetes, and two, systematic reduction in ICU beds. The upcoming trend in the number of patients at risk and the downward trend in the number of ICU beds inevitably had to cross sooner or later. As a matter of fact, this intersection occurred years ago, long before the coronavirus outbreak. The ICU overload has also occurred during recent flu epidemics, for example, resulting in delayed treatments and procedures during those times as well. And yet, another remarkable fact. While the limited capacity of the ICUs was the first and main reason for the introduction of the drastic and, from an economic and psychological point of view, extremely destructive measures, no additional ICU beds were created during the crisis. There were no attempts whatsoever to do so. As with
Yeah, in our country, they took over all the football stadiums because it was like the hospitals are going to overflow. And yeah, I even remember one football team getting shit because they wouldn't give up their stadium to be turned into a hospital. They're going to put loads of hospital beds. And then it just never happened.
individuals, societies.
In fact, even the hospitals was empty. Like, I remember going to hospital for something during that time. And obviously everything was social distance. There was like basically no one in the hospital. And you'd like go in and go, hold on, what was all the football stadiums for then?
Also seem to derive some disease gain from their psychological symptoms and therefore angle to maintain those symptoms. I like to call this section the relativity of numbers. Everyone can select numbers that match their own prejudices. Everyone can interpret them in such a way that they support their subjective ideological fiction. The almost irresistible illusion that numbers represent facts ensures that people become increasingly convinced that their own fiction is reality. The use of numbers in this crisis makes us barely realize that what we do respond to are not so much the facts, but the stories constructed around facts. Those stories are spun by healthcare workers who genuinely do their best to help, by people who don't want to see their families suffer, by politicians who want to make the right decisions, by academics who want to provide information as objectively as possible. However, they are also constructed by politicians who are under the pressure of public opinion and feel compelled to act decisively, by leaders who have lost control and see their opportunity to take back the reins, by experts who have had to hide their ignorance, by academics who see a chance to assert themselves, by man's inherent propensity for hysteria and drama, by pharmaceutical companies that smell dollar bills, by media that thrive on sensational stories, by ideologies that see in a technocratic totalitarian system the only solution to the seemingly insoluble problems of our time. How is it possible for researchers to fall prey to their subjective prejudices? The explanation can be found, in part, among the following issues. Every research procedure requires countless choices for which there are no strictly logical grounds. Which measuring instruments will I use? How will I interpret the measurements? How do I deal with missing data? And so on. From this vast array of possibilities, researchers unconsciously choose options that will ensure the results they seem desirable. The fanatical belief in the objectivity of measurements and numbers, which is typical of the mechanistic ideology, is not only unfounded, it is also dangerous. There arises a kind of mutual reinforcement between subjective biases and numbers. The stronger the biases, the more one selects the numbers that confirm these biases. And the more the numbers confirm their biases, the stronger the biases subsequently become. Applied to the coronavirus crisis, a society saturated with fear and unease selects from the myriad of numbers those that can confirm its fear. The chosen numbers then reinforce the fear. As a result, people react in a disproportionate way, with all the ensuing consequences. From an economic viewpoint, the recession and the bankruptcy of countless companies and small businesses. From a social viewpoint, permanent damage to the physical bond among people. From a psychological viewpoint, even more fear and depression. And yes, from a physical viewpoint, a collapse of immunity and physical health as a result of the stressful psychological and social predicament. And we might add, from a political viewpoint, the rise of the totalitarian state. Indeed, if you're convinced that your own subjective fiction is reality, you will also think your reality is superior to the fiction of others. This is how we become convinced that our fiction can be imposed upon the other by any possible means. And
Yeah, well, pause there. Well, as well. I mean, COVID, but also you can't help that with the trans. I mean, the trans thing is exactly the same ideology pushing it to push your, again, something Jordan Peterson says. It's one thing to tell people something they can't say. To tell people there's things they have to say is a line that no government has ever crossed in the history of the English language. Not one. However bad they have never, there's not been one government institution ever in the history of the English language that has forced people to say things. Like you have to say, you have to affirm someone's gender. Otherwise, it's a hate crime and you're doing violence on them. It's like, you don't have that right. It's already a step, one step over the line to tell people things they can't say, let alone things they have to say. And what he said there is by any means necessary. But yeah, the whole COVID thing, it's like, even someone like my dad was like, he's completely anti-conspiracy guy. I've had endless arguments with him over conspiracy things, and he just won't have it. He won't have a bar of it until COVID. And even he said, something seriously is wrong. Something seriously is going on. And like, for him to start opening up to conspiracies, but I think a lot of, because my dad's very conservative, well, he is conservative. I think a lot of conservatives as well become conspiracy theorists after COVID as well. But they started to realise that actually conspiracy theorists have kind of had a point. When Andrew Schultz that said that, everyone changed their tune. The left changed their tune that all of a sudden Big Pharma's great, and we should all listen to the government. The right wing changed their tune because all of a sudden they wanted bailouts for their companies. They wanted government assistance for their companies. These are the only people that have remained the same throughout the whole of the COVID thing. Is conspiracy theorists. The conspiracy theorists have been saying, "We told you." We told you this was happening. And it was. I remember conspiracy theorists talking about it way before it happened, that people will be chipped through an illness that vaccines will, um, they'll do it through creating an illness and then having vaccines and you won't even know it's happening. I don't know whether people are chipped and whether they do it. They might have just been doing a dummy run to see if they could get people to do it. Although if that was the case, they've definitely overplayed their hand, because I don't think anyone is falling for lockdown. Like I say, I can't even be mad at Boris Johnson and um the politicians. All right, they shut the country down, but also there was people was demanding it of them too. And also, pretty much everyone still went round everyone's house, and do you know what I mean? Like I say, there was some people that was socially distancing, and you had to in shops and things. You didn't have a choice. It was either that or not go in a shop. Um, but yeah, if it was a dummy run and they didn't chip everybody, I didn't get the vaccination, and not even out of some great grand anti-conspiracy thing. The government kept messaging me, kept getting texts from the government about doing a COVID jab, and it was getting on my nerves. I mean, like, sometimes 2, 3 times a day they would text me. It was getting on my nerves, so I was like, fuck it, I'll just book it. Booked it, and then just completely forgot about it. And they just didn't text me again, so, yeah. I really only was going to get the jab because they just driving me up the wall with it, but the second I booked it, they just left me alone, and I didn't actually get it. I survived. I survived the worst, yeah, pandemic in human history. Didn't get a jab, didn't really social distance. I pretty much worked all the way through up until the point when they literally, everything was literally shut. There was no one anywhere. But yeah, anyway, that's the reaction. Sweet.